Hello, everybody. D23 has happened. It's over. It's past the point of being here. But I wanted to take some time to really talk to you about my thoughts, my initial reaction. So, first of all, I want to thank everybody. I know I'm putting this on Twitter. So, for everybody that was on Twitter, that joined on the Discord last night, that became a part of that, we had over 20 people that had joined to share the moment. So, I wanted to say a quick shout out to all of you for being able to join. Also, big thank to Coaster K as well as Dreamfinder 1983. Huge thank you to both for being able to be there and host it with me. It was a great time. Awesome to get to experience that with everybody, and especially with you guys. So, let's talk D23. I'm not going to be cynical. I'm not going to be over the moon, evil, or anything like that. I think genuinely we had one of the best D23s, in my opinion, the best D23 of all time. I know some people will fight me on that, but honestly, I don't see how you could get any better than this. So I want to talk about each of the things that have happened, and I want to kind of give a little bit more detail and the things that have been talked about a little bit beforehand and my expectations for them. Um, so yeah, let's go ahead and start. Let's just start this. As Neil Patrick Harris said, this carries still progress, and we'll begin with the very beginning. Um, they announced that there was some returning entertainment coming to Disneyland, Fantasy in the Sky, or sorry, no, that's Walt Disney World. Can't remember the name of the fireworks, but there was the fireworks that are coming to Disneyland. Ones that I've never seen that were for the 50th anniversary. Those are returning, as well as the original World of Color. That is huge. I actually really enjoyed World of Color 1, but yeah, the original is better. I mean, the original is just, it has that carousel, but that World of Color theme that is extremely special, and so I'm extremely happy to see them have that back. Um, with that in mind, I'm a little sad. I can't lie. That's the only one where I'm like a little like, I really wish we could have heard of a new nighttime parade. With Paint the Night leaving, I really wish they would have said Paint the Night's either coming back or that we were getting Main Street Electrical Parade. I know they're gonna have to wheel it out in a wheelchair. I mean, it's ancient at this point. I personally love the Main Street Electrical Parade. I was really hoping it would return, but I understand why they probably chose against that. Um, with that being said, though, that still was an absolutely great announcement, a great way to start the show. And then they dove into a little bit of the um, past, the legacy portion of this. They talked a little bit about the Space Mountains, my personal favorite attraction in the world, as well as my favorite announcement last night. That De la Terre à la Lune was going to be returning to its original, not its Mission 2 form, its original De la Terre à la Lune form. That is an absolutely huge announcement, as well as the fact that it's not just them going back. I put this in a tweet earlier today where I said, Disney has a really bad habit of taking two steps forward and then when they take a step back, they decide, oh, well, we know they liked it when it was two steps back, so let's just go two steps back. And they just completely revert a change. Um, or they just keep pressing on, right? Like that's typically what we see with Disney. This is not that. This is them learning from the things that they took. They're going to take pieces from those older versions and they're going to bring them back in a refreshed way. So, the biggest change, obviously, the biggest thing that I'm very speculative about is the return of a certain character from Discoveryland. I knew they weren't going to take down Buzz in order to bring him back, but um, yeah, Nine Eye from the Timekeeper attraction at Discoveryland, and that was at Magic Kingdom, is returning. This is absolutely huge news to me. I mean, personally, not only was Robin Williams one of my favorite actors of all time, so seeing him as the Timekeeper was really special. But Nine Eye is one of the more whimsical characters, and one character that's not been seen in so long that I genuinely didn't think Disney would ever bring them back. Um, it's not like Dreamfinder and Figment, where Figment still had an attraction and Figment was still going strong. No, Nine Eye had been dead in a ditch for decades now. Nine Eye has not been seen in a while. So the fact that they're bringing Nine Eye and integrating him into this attraction, not only does it fit really well, um, but I'm really curious to see how they implement him and his circle vision ability. Um, really, really excited to see what they do with that. Um, Now, they could just do what I think is probably the most obvious or the most likely one, which is just including the animatronics somewhere in the ride, like you fly past him at some point. I hope this is not what they're going to do with this. It seems like with everything else they're doing, which let's talk about that. That they're going to be putting him somewhere in the queue, probably as maybe a pre-show somewhat. I know there's the room right before you get into the open room, right now just currently has the original drawings of the Clumbadeck cannon in it. I have the feeling maybe he might show up in there, um, but I'm not entirely sure yet. Obviously, we're not going to know until we get there. But in terms of the rest of the updates, so we know that the original soundtrack is returning, and that's really all they announced at the panel. Now, today they did a Two Imagineers, One Mountain panel at D23 where they talked a little bit more in detail on specifically what was going to be going on inside the mountain. That I think is where a lot of the changes are going to be seen. They said that the original Clumbadet cannon effect. So there's two effects that occurred on the mountain. Actually, technically three. The first one was when as your vehicle came up the initial hill, um, there was a slot of the cannon that would open up and would show your car going past because you can't see them in the cannon if that's closed. It's been closed since Hyperspace Mountain, I believe. I don't think it's open since Hyperspace Mountain, maybe even Mission 2. And then the second piece is the actual cannon itself would actually cock back, and then it would when you shot, it would again launch forward to make it look like it was literally shooting you out of the cannon. The smoke effects and all that. They said all that's coming back. Um, I'm assuming when they said all effects are turning, they're also going to be talking about the cogs. There was a lot of cogs that were on that would turn as well to signify the movement to help give it a little bit of livelihood. Hoping we see that as well. And then as well as the inside, they announced that in the queue, in the original version of the attraction, there was a place called the Starway, and essentially when you walked into the main building, you would walk through what is now just this hallway, like this long hallway that's essentially the same as what Space Mountain at Disneyland is, where you just walk through this weird hallway that turns. And I know me and other people when I was last there in 2024, we essentially said, why is this here? We can hear the coaster right outside the door. Why is this here? And the reason is because when the ride originally opened, the Starway was completely open. So there was no wall there. You actually could see into the ride. It was dark, so it wouldn't take away from the attraction, and you could see the vehicles fly past you in the ride. They're bringing that back as well. That's huge. I think that's going to add so much more livelihood to that attraction, so much more, excuse me, all in the queue, as well as the final thing that they announced, essentially that the a lot of the original effects inside the attraction come back. So I'm expecting the asteroid from Mission 2 to stay. You know, when you fly inside the asteroid, they changed some of the lighting in that. I'm expecting that to stay, as well as a couple of other effects that they've shown off in the Mission 2 version. But I also anticipate some of the older effects, like the moon itself, to return to its smiling glory. Um, I think as a personal, really funny touch, they're not going to do this, but let me just throw this out here for everybody. I think it'd be really funny if the moon face they project on there was the Nigel Channing face. I think it'd be really funny if they just said, you know what, we have this face in the moon already. Let's use this as the face in the moon instead of the really cartoonish one. The reason I say that is because we have Pizza Moon, which weirdly enough I think was also going for that same style. And I don't know. I think it's really interesting the Epic Universe did that, and I think it'd be really funny if we had two of the same moon. So I don't want them to look too similar, even if they were the original one. I think it'd be funnier if they used a more human-like face for the moon. But we'll have to see. You know, this is just like a personal thing that I just think it'd be cool. So with that being said, we'll keep moving forward. I'm sorry I spent a lot of time on that because I'm just really excited for it. Um, Additionally, I'll give a quick little side note here. Disneyland Paris after the show also announced they were getting their own daytime parade that included Coco and what I believe was the Genie and Jasmine. So that's really cool. I'm hoping we're getting more details on that soon. It said that it's coming in 2028 as well. So we have a little bit of time till we get there, but I wanted to say that as well. So next, we went to Space Mountain in Tokyo, where my probably second favorite update was given in terms of like actual stuff. There's stuff at the end. There was really cool stuff at the end. We're gonna get there. In terms of showing physical things, Space Mountain Earthrise, the new attraction that's coming to Tokyo, is clearly going to be a absolute standout Space Mountain. I think the fact that it's the exact opposite of Jules Verne's like steampunk storytelling. They're going super futuristic and hyper speed space style thing. I shouldn't have said hyperspace because people are gonna freak out. But listening to you, Hong Kong. But when we see things like that, I think it's really, really cool that they're doing both. They have the ability to stretch that to both. So, essentially, they said that that's going to be opening next year. I am planning to travel to Disneyland, not Disneyland Paris, Tokyo Disneyland next year to experience this attraction when it opens because I think it's very, very special. As well as it gives me the chance to ride some other rides that I've been missing dearly, things like Splash Mountain, and as well as get to ride some new stuff. Pooh's Honey Hunt, I think is going to be a lot of fun. So, with that being said, they didn't have too much to show other than just a new launch sequence. I think it was really cool, but there's not really much other to say than I think that was great to just add a little bit more detail, sprinkle in a little bit more there, and then move forward. So, then they got to the next Walt Disney World announcement. They jumped into that they were may or may not have been fixing a certain Yeti that is in Expedition Everest. Now, a lot of people get confused by this. A lot of people are saying, they're gonna have to close the ride for years in order to fix this, blah blah blah. I don't think people realize that when they say this, the animatronic itself was the problem. It wasn't the foundation. This has been debunked by Joe Rohde, and I believe a couple of executives from Animal Kingdom, where they've said straight up, the reason they've not done it is not because of the fact that um, they'd have to pull the mountain in half or anything like that. There's actually a really big door behind where the Yeti is, where they could essentially then they couldn't wheel him out because he's up on a rafter, but it would be very easy to bring like cranes and things in there to help take the pieces off, and they could essentially completely remove the Yeti overnight, just like that. So when I say that, I'm saying as a little prediction, I do expect Everest to close relatively soon. I don't think it'll be tomorrow or maybe even the first half of next year, but I do think maybe after the summer rush of next year, um, they might pull the plug for a couple of weeks for them to redo that because I really do think it'll be as simple as they're going to test this animatronic constantly. I do not think it is going to be them just taking the old animatronic out, putting some oil on them and sticking them back in, right? I think they're currently building an entirely new Yeti, or more so an entirely new skeletal figure for him that's going to be lighter and more movement heavy. There's been a lot of advancements that have happened in the last 20 years, guys. So I do think we're going to see a more advanced Yeti than before. And I think that once he comes out, I assume, to be honest with you, I'm going to say a little prediction here. I'm going to assume some of those pieces are coming from Dinosaur. There was a little bit of a prediction I had heard a while back that once Dinosaur had closed, those animatronics, because they were so big, had a lot of pieces that could maybe be used to retrofit onto a Yeti if they wanted to refix him. So, no idea if that's true or not. I honestly probably doubt it's true, but just something to denote. Then, um, so yeah, I think that their Yeti's going to go down next year. I think it's going to take them a couple weeks, and I think as a bold prediction, I think they're going to want to have it fixed for when Encanto and the Tropical Americas open. I think they want to have it fixed beforehand. That way they can say, oh, this is a new Animal Kingdom. We have half the park that's been renewed. Because essentially that's half the park in attraction wise. I mean, you've got Cali Rapid as the sore thumb as the water ride, and then you got Safari and the two Nave River Journey rides, but that's it. So that'll be four attractions: the carousel, Dinosaurs, new Indiana Jones attraction, Encanto, and Everest that they could market as. So just keep a lookout on the horizon for that. Get it, horizons. Um, anyways, so moving forward, I'm gonna skip forward past the international parks for a little bit because I don't think any of the others pertain to Marvel stuff. I kind of want to skip that because I don't think my audience, the people that like I talk to when I'm talking on Twitter, really care for the Hong Kong or the Spider-Man attraction coming to Shanghai. So I'm gonna skip past those. Just say, I mean, they look all right. I love Marvel, but I can't say I'm too excited for those attractions. Um, but what I can say is I am starting to get a little bit of traction for the Avengers Infinity Defense that's coming to California Adventure. Now, they did announce that it unfortunately is going to be coming out in 2028. I was crossing my fingers and praying that it would come at the end of 2027. Sounds like it's probably not coming until mid 2028 by the what I've heard on the show floor. Um, so we'll have to keep a lookout for that. But some of the stuff they showed in there, it seems like they're going to be doing a lot more practical effects this time around. They've learned, there's like, oh, they showed a giant millionaire. Um, they showed the Wakanda statue, some it looked like Shatari bones, as well as in the we call it or the Imagineering Story season two. I believe there was some clips of an Iron Man animatronic landing and flying around. So I have the feeling that maybe we might be getting some physical animatronics in this that we weren't expecting. I'm gonna leave that there because I don't know anything. I'm not gonna speculate, but um, maybe we get some pretty cool stuff there. So I'm gonna leave that there. I do not think the flight, whatever it's called, the Tony Stark's flight lab or whatever it is, with the Kuka arms. I don't think that's. I think that's just to add capacity, which I'm fine with. I think we need it anyways, but whatever. Um, so then we went into the adventure portion of the attraction, or a part of the Carousel Progress show, where we talked about tropical Americas. Um, Trying to think of the best way to word this. My hype for this has been relatively muted. I like Encanto as a movie. I like Indiana Jones movies. But I really love the dinosaur. In fact, I've got Dinorama down here. I really enjoyed Dinorama and Dino Land and all that, even though I know that's probably a very weird take to have. I personally really enjoyed it. So, um, I just didn't really think they were gonna be able to bring anything like Dinosaur. Based on what I heard with them saying, it's gonna be like a Mayan god and be through a temple. I was just like, it's just gonna be Disneyland Adventure. It's just going to be the Indiana Jones Adventure at Disneyland, and it's just gonna be instead of a snake, we're going to get instead of that pretty like the pretty big snake and the boulder, we were going to get that Mayan god that like swoops down at you or something, right? They have proven me very wrong. They showed a model of a snake that looks to be the animatronic, just the head looks to be the same size as the Carnotaurus, if not larger. I kid you not, that thing looks ginormous. I am absolutely hyped and thrilled over the moon based on the things they've shown us. The facade. It seems like the facade's gonna be coming up the next couple weeks, so we should see a temple there in a couple weeks. Um, but yeah, I went from not caring too much to being absolutely thrilled. I think they can do this right. If it seems like there's going to be a charging Carno scene with the giant snake, and as well as I'm assuming the finale boulder is going to be swapped out with the snake as well. And they said that we're literally going to hell in this, or well, the Mayan underworld. But hell sounds funnier. Uh, so that's in the silliest way, just bonkers. I mean, that's just really, really cool to see them stepping into the culture that deep. I did not think it was going to go to that level. So I'm really, really appreciative that they're really taking this seriously. We'll get to my thoughts on the creative direction behind everything that's been announced at the end, but I just wanted to put a pin in that for a second. Then the Encanto attraction, I don't care for the name. I think adding Antonio on there just is dumb. I think it just should have been called Feliz de Encanto. I think that would have been a great name of the attraction. Simple. It didn't need to be overcomplicated with the name, because at the end of the day, nobody really knows who Antonio is. They watched the movie, but he's not a primary character like Mirabelle is. So, um, or in another example, Tiana's Bayou Adventure. Tiana is a main character. She is the character you know Princess of the Frog from, so it makes sense to include her name, right? But this just Antonio's Feliz de Encanto just doesn't flow. So that disappoints me a little bit. The fact that it's a dark ride style. Um, Additionally, the fact that it seems to be trackless, and there's a new patent that they released to kind of show they're going to change floors. Oh, and that it's family friendly and it's not going to have any height requirement. I think that's really, really good. I think Animal Kingdom really needs it. Um, I don't think that the animatronic or like anything on that ride is going to necessarily blow me away at the same size of like what Dinosaurs replacement's going to be. I know Drew. A shout out to Drew. Um, I know Drew says this could be like the attraction like changes the game and like it's gonna be really really great. I personally just think for me, I'm not going to think of it as the greatest attraction of all time. I think I'll probably think it's good. It looks neat to me, But weirdly enough, my height for it was like at like an 8. I was really excited for Encanto, and I was at like a 4 with Indiana Jones, and now those are probably swapped. I think I'm probably on an 8 for Indiana Jones and about a 4 for Encanto. It's just one of those things that's less priority for me. Um, I'm more of a thrill guy anyway, so maybe that's part of it. But yeah, I think they're really going to surprise me. I think they're going to surprise everybody. I think Indiana Jones will be a sleeper hit. I'm not really going to mention the carousel here because the carousel is just, it's a carousel. Great. Happy you guys are doing wood carved things, and like the aging of it's going to make it fit better with Animal Kingdom. So props to you. Then finally we have we had a little bit more talk about Coco at Disney California Adventure. I think that one is going to be really, really, really special. I think that's going to be the ride to look for. I think they're going to be using a lot of Pepper's Ghost. I think there are going to be a lot of animatronics. I think they're going to pull out all of the stops for Coco. Really, really excited to see what they do with this. I do expect it to be based on the artwork we've seen, as well as based on, in particular, based on the ride vehicle. I have the feeling that this is going to be like Navi River Journey. It's especially compared to the building size. I assume it's gonna be longer than Navi River Journey, but my anticipation is that it's essentially going to be a very slow moving boat ride, more for the ambiance than anything else. We're gonna be in the land. They want to immerse you, and I am all for it. I'm all for that. I am so set with that. I think Navi River Journey, the only reason it doesn't work for me is that you essentially ride it for the one animatronic at the end. If they take that philosophy of that advanced animatronic and place it everywhere in that ride, it will be something special. So, Coco has hyped me up a little bit. I know it's probably going to be building wise, probably 2029 at the earliest, but we'll have to wait and see there. So then they came back to Magic Kingdom and they talked a little bit about Piston Peak, Mrs. Fritter's Daredevil spin or whatever it's called. I don't think that's anything crazy. I think it's essentially just Rollickin' Roadsters and Ash the spinner ride. The essentially the two rides that Radiator Springs put together. It's gonna be a trackless style ride that's additionally going to have like a dancing element like Rock and Roll Stars while also slinging you around, like swirling saucers. That's the name of it from Toy Story Land. Um, Very curious to see what they do there with that. I'm I it's not built for me. It's built for younger kids, so that's fine. I think it'll still be a unique ride to ride and one that I'll probably ride, especially with the water elements. I also really am excited to see the Miss Fritter animatronic. It's clear that they're trying to do better on this. Additionally, it seems like they're trying to flex their skills with weather. I noticed for both these attractions, they've announced that they're going to be making them specifically so they can still be used, even though they're outdoors, in the rain. Now, will people want to ride them in rain? Probably not. But I think that this is very, very good, especially with how much water effects are going to be on both attractions. I think that's very special, and I think that'll be very good. Obviously, it'll probably still close during thunderstorms, but this is a great start. So next we have Cars Ridge Run Rally, the big attraction for Piston Peak. I am super excited for this ride. I am really confused as to why they didn't talk about the ride vehicle too much. I was really hoping they would say whether or not it was going to be trackless or not. I have the feeling they're still trying to figure it out themselves. They have a patent for it, and I'm assuming that's what they're trying to go for. I think the original idea had it tracked, um, but we're going to have to see what that ends up becoming. Personally, I think the off-roading idea is a really, really cool one. Even though I love, love, love the Liberty Bell, I'm okay with this. I'm okay with them taking a new direction for this, and I do think that this is going to be worth the space. Um, they're really trying to go for pretty here, and I think if they do it right, it will be very, very special. Return Rally itself, I've actually created. If you look on my profile, I did post a layout that I expected, and I believe I've got it pretty much down packed. There's probably one turn I got wrong in that, but outside of that, I'm pretty sure it's 100% correct. Um, I think that's cool. I'm excited to see kind of where they go with that. But yeah, outside of that, I think really that was it for Piston Peak. We then shifted into the Villains Land. That's going to be a very big thing coming up. Villains Land is very, very special. They announced that it's going to be it's kind of like the Dark Forest that they showed at the pavilion. And then you're going to go in, you're going to see Maleficent's castle. And you're going to have that very advanced high speed, high thrill coaster, should preface that. It based on everything they're talking about, it seems like the what they're going for is a very I, I'm gonna go ahead and say this is a bold prediction. I think it will be way more intense than Tron. I think it will be longer than Tron, just based on what I can see outside. Remember, this is there's a model that they show on YouTube that's the of some of the coaster. That's just the outside. There's also the inside pieces that I'm assuming where the animatronic dragon's gonna be. Spoiler alert. Um, but I think it's really, really cool to see that they're really, really trying to expand the lore here and that they're going evil, they're going intense, they're going scary. They're not making it a baby area for the 4-year-olds that love Ursula, right? They're making it for us, the fans who love them for being who they are, which is despicable and nasty. Um, Now, I also love that they're putting an elegant spin on this. They're giving it a lore, its own story. They showed some concept art of the characters in their new forms. I think that's really, really special. Um, I also think, and again, we'll get back to creative decisions and where I think the company's heading towards the end, but another thing I want to put a pin on for that conversation is Dr. Facilier's design. Um, it's clear that they're trying really hard to impress us with Villain's Land. Um, with that being said, the second attraction I think is going to be not a boat ride. Everybody keeps saying it's going to be a boat ride. I think it'll simulate a boat ride, but I think it'll actually be a simulator somewhat like Infinity Defense is going to be, with the bucket style attraction. It seems like they very much like how that attraction's been used over at Tokyo with the Fantasy Springs and the Peter Pan attraction. So I have the feeling they're probably going to keep expanding on that and seeing what they can do with that attraction vehicle. So there we go. That's everything up until the. Wait a minute. I forgot. There's a whole ending piece that they talked about. Um, you can see him to my left over here. There's a little friend here from the original attraction. He was $16 at the time. That's right. They, of course, as you guys have probably all seen, as the internet broke, literally Twitter stopped working for about an hour for me. Journey into Imagination with Figment was announced to be getting an update. Um, and not just that, but Spaceship Earth. I know I should have talked about it earlier, but I wanted to save it to now. Spaceship Earth is getting an update as well. For those of you that know me, coming up to this, I did not believe both would happen. I assumed Spaceship Earth would be first. They would shut it down. They would get it done as quickly as they could, and then they would try and do Figment before they got to the next anniversary. Um, they have proved very wrong there. They went ahead and announced both. Of course, they've not shown too much detail, and I think we'll hear more throughout this week of Spaceship Earth in particular. I do expect Spaceship Earth to close next year. I do expect it to reopen in 2029. Um, or actually, we'll save this. I believe it could open earlier, but I'll say why at the end. Um, but yeah, so they're doing updates to both Journey to Imagination with Figment, and they're bringing the Dreamfinder back, another lost character that's been kind of trapped, as mentioned earlier with Nine Eyes. So where's Timekeeper, guys? Chop chop. Um, but yeah, with this, they announced that two of the most classic attractions that really needed help at Epcot are getting it, and I think once those are done, Epcot will be in a very, very good spot. Of course, we've still got things like Mission Space should still be Horizons, in my opinion. Wonders of Life is still being kind of left to the side and abandoned. I honestly, at this point, I'm kind of losing hope on any ever seeing something with Wonders of Life, and I think that's okay. I think they had planned to announce that it was going to become a Fortnite pavilion, but they didn't announce anything Fortnite tonight, including the new Disney experiences that were coming to Fortnite that were supposed to launch the end of this year. So I kind of think maybe something happened there and they're kind of divesting. So we're gonna have to wait and see on that. I do think there's still a possibility of Fortnite happening in Wonders of Life, but we'll have to see. Anyways, those two attractions really needed help. And the fact that they're doing that and they're giving them help is huge. Um, Personally, I teared up a little last night. I know my co-host Dreamfinder did as well. So sorry I had to call you out there, but yeah, we had a great time. Um, that's that's essentially where they ended us off. They had one more announcement they announced right before Figment for Disneyland, and that's Tomorrowland is finally getting its update to save this as the a last announcement, just because I personally think it should have been last. I think this one was huge for the Disneyland crowd, especially I know Dolan was there from Offhand Disney. I'm proud of you, buddy. You're finally getting what you've been asking for. Um, I'm not going to speculate too much. I've heard some things. I've heard some potentials of what's happening there. I have hope that they're going to do the right thing with Tomorrowland as well. But I don't expect them to talk about Tomorrowland. I expect for them to start talking about it soon, but I don't expect anything to close till next year. So I'm gonna kind of save that one for when those news starts to come out because they didn't say anything on that. Same with Figment, which is why I'm not talking too much on Figment. They didn't announce anything on the closure or what it's becoming, anything like that. Just that it's a new story with Dreamfinder and Figment together again. So with that being said, we're now at the end. We've talked about almost everything. I think that's essentially everything that was announced. If I missed something, I'm sorry, guys. Um, that was a great show. They clearly had a lot to show. And I think it's very important to talk about something in particular. It's very clear that Disney, this new leadership, Josh D'Amaro, Thomas Maslam, these people have leadership often has a disconnect with the fans because there are people in business that as I actually been doing my degree in business. I just graduated with my master's in business. You'll see that there's two very different kind of people. There's people like Walt that are creative and that want to do cool things and they want to just go as crazy as they can go. And then there's people like Roy, which although I love Roy, Roy was the opposite of Walt and until Walt passed. Roy was not too big on the creative side. He was the bean counter behind the scenes. He looked at the money. He said, "You can't do that, Walt. You don't have the money for it." And then Walt said, "I'll find a way to do it." Right? Um, I think our previous leadership was more bean counter. I think particularly Bob Chapek really hurt a lot of the Imagineering. I think to put this in perspective, I think the bean counting began as far back as 2018 with things like Toy Story Land. I think the drought we experienced from that. I think the the things they took from both Toy Story Land and they took from Star Wars Galaxy's Edge was a direct result of Bob Chapek coming in. I think Bob Chapek was a bean counter. I know he'd been there since I believe 2016, but I think we saw the results of that until 2018. And then, of course, he became CEO. The world shut down. COVID happened. The world got thrown around, and they lost a lot of profit. I think Bob Chapek, when he took the reins, I think the Imagineers at the time probably saw the writing on the wall that the guy who was telling us that we can't do this stuff anymore is now the owner. So we need to jump ship. Um, there was a whole lot of crap that went down there, right? Um, so then we go into Bob Chapek, post Bob Chapek when Bob Iger returns. And I think Bob tried to get people back like Bruce Vaughan and he tried to pull people together. I think Bob was not too involved because he was too busy trying to fix the issues at hand. He was letting it be ran by Josh D'Amaro, and Josh knew that we needed better. Um, if you look at, let's say, the Bob Chapek projects, in my opinion, were everything from 2020, 2018 till probably 2024. I would assume would probably be pretty much everything that Bob had his hands in from a leadership perspective. And now we're jumping back, right? So now Josh D'Amaro is the leader. He's barely been a leader for a couple months now. Same with Thomas Maslam as the leader of the new parks and experiences area. Um, but it's clear that the message they want to send to everybody is that we want you to come back. We want to see you happy with what we're doing. We understand that some of the things in the past were not done the way they should have been done. Um, and we want to fix that. We want to bring this goodwill back. And I think that's so important when we look to the future of the parks because they have to balance the new and the old. they've been really focused on these new expansions, new lands, things like that. When I think what they really should have started focusing on more was just fixing what was there. Um, and I think we're seeing a shift in that. If you notice, we are getting this D23. They announced something very, very special. So they announced that essentially every project they're doing at the Magic Kingdom. Let me think. Every project except for Tropical Americas, which I think is still a result of the Chapek era. I think they're doing better with it. I think they're upgrading it, but I think it was still a direct piece of the Chapek era. Um, every single one of the projects that was announced for Walt Disney World, did nobody realize that they were all original attractions? Not only were they original attractions, let's keep in mind Spaceship Earth, Yeti, Figment, um, and then Villain's Land and Piston Peak, right? It's like all these things, right? All these attractions. All of them have original stories. Now, not all of them are original IP. Obviously, Cars is very well known. Same with the villains. But it's clear based on the conversations they've had with us that they didn't want to retell a story. They wanted to do something unique. They're being told to stretch their minds. And I think this is especially true for the entirety of the panel. We look at De La Terre a la Lune returning. They could have easily have just said we're going all the way and we're IPing Discoveryland. Tomorrow we have Star Wars there. We know people want more Star Wars. Let's make it full Star Wars. Let's make this first fully Star Wars Space Mountain. They didn't. They said we're gonna bring back original characters from a ride that's not even involved. That's just from the land. Another legendary attraction with the Timekeeper. We're gonna bring that character back. And we're going to add him to the original lore that we're going to tell with this attraction. So there's one ride that's original. Then we have Spaceship Earth is getting a new original story that is not IP based. It's still going to be centered around what Epcot is about. They keep in mind they mention that new magic is coming to every scene, which is really just they're touching them up and adding projection effects probably to a lot of them and like magic effects like what we saw with the story light. But it's clear that what they're doing something so unique. They're going forward and they're just saying, we know that what you guys want in these parks is not just ride retellings. You want fresh ideas that inspire. Spaceship Earth, Figment, um, all these things. They're going back to the drawing board, and they could have easily have said we're adding IP to all these attractions, and they didn't. We saw Moana coming to Spaceship Earth back in 2020 when Bob Chapek was planning to do it. Can you imagine if that had happened? The fact is that they're changing the course of the parks. This is a new era. When we look at the eras, a lot of the times we talk about them as like different eras. So we talk about, the classic era, then we talk about the Disney decade, then we talk about the millennium. The new millennium, I think, was the name of that era that we called, and then you had the new millennium age, and um, then you had the IP age. I think is really what it's been up until COVID, and then COVID, infamously or not, was called the Chapek era, um, because of the fact that it was Chapek through and through. It was about the money, um, and then I think last night was a turning page. Last night was new. Last night was special. I don't want to call it too quickly, but I have a feeling that this new era, is going to be known as the revival era. I think we're going to see more classic attractions return. I do not think they are done. Um, I'm going to go out on a very bold limb here, and say, to everyone's surprise, that I have a feeling that rides like the Great Movie Ride, Muppet Vision 3D, um, I'm trying to think of another great example, Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. I think they're going to look at those attractions again and say, how can we bring them back? Can we bring them back? And what do we need to do to bring them back? Now, I don't think it's going to be easy. I don't think it's going to be an overnight change. As they say, Rome wasn't built in a day. I've been saying this a lot today, actually. So hold on to your horses. But I think this next week, as they announce, for example, last time they announced the Rivers America was closing post after the fact, after they showed cars. I think I think starting tomorrow, we're going to see some real updates on those attractions. We're going to start seeing closing dates. We're going to start seeing the sad parts for some of those rides and some of the extensions and things that might have happened. Um, I think we're going to see a real change in the attractions, in the rides, in the things going forward. A great example of this, and something I just thought of that I completely forgot to mention, is Monstropolis. Um, it seems like essentially, but based on what they've said, is that this Monstropolis show is going to be very animatronic heavy. It's going to have a screen, obviously. I mean, it's sure I'm sure they're going to have a screen. It's going to be screen based somewhat, but based on the concept art and the things we've seen, they're going to be animatronic heavy. They showed an animatronic in Harryhausen's. Everybody did not think the octopus was going to happen. This is going to be the third attraction to ever have, or the first restaurant to have. This will be the first sit down restaurant to have an animatronic in it. When you think about it, you have Sony Eclipse in Starlight Cafe, and then you have Rex in DJ Rex in the Cantina. This will be the first sit down restaurant to have an animatronic built in as a part of the ambiance, and that just shows the level of Imagineering that we've been waiting for. Um, and additionally, that they said we could. A lot of people don't like the word phased opening. I don't think it matters as long as we're getting what we need. And I love that Disney, they admitted on that stage last night, hey, this coaster, what I assume happened is that this coaster got plussed. I think we're going to see more out of this coaster than what was initially planned. I think they essentially said this coaster's going to take longer to build because we have some cool things we want to do with it. But the rest of that land, it was already pre-built. Muppet Vision, all the Archie Scare Pizza that's coming, Harryhausen's, all that is in pre-existing buildings. Why don't we just say screw it and open it up early? They're doing that. They're opening it next year. Next year we are going to see that. Another great example and something I didn't mention, kind of because I don't know how to talk about it, is the Carousel of Progress. The Carousel of Progress is reopening next year, spring of next year. That's insanity. Um, and shows that they're really working hard. And Bob Gurr has been brought in on the attraction, and this brings me back to Tropical Americas, to that and to everything else they're talking about as to the parks. They specifically brought out a lot of names of Imagineers that were legacy Imagineers. Tony Baxter, Joe Rohde, Bob Gurr. We've also seen others come out like Kim Irvine. Um, I think something very indicative of this new age is the fact that when you look at their portfolio projects and the things that they've worked on, you'll notice from pretty much whenever I said 2018 forward, they all kind of stopped working on projects. They stopped being leads of projects, and they stopped consulting, and they left for maybe a little bit, and now they're all back. A great example of this, they announced today Bob Gurr has been helping and is working with the team on Carousel of Progress. They announced that Tim Delaney, the original one for De la Terre à la Lune, is the one that's coming back to work on that again. They announced Joe Rohde has been in talks to help with Indiana Jones and the Tropical Americas land to make sure it feels authentically Mayan. These people coming back and giving their minds again shows that Imagineering is in a place where they feel comfortable. This is Imagineering that we want. This team, this group of people, this is the future. And I think it's going to be very, very special. Um, with that, I know this video, I don't have a timer on my camera. Oh, never mind. I do have a camera. It's almost 45 minutes long. We've talked a lot in this video. And I think there's a lot of very, very special things coming forward. I am so excited to see everything as it comes. As you can see, obviously a big Disney fan. I've got so much care and love for these attractions, for these rides, for these characters. The fact that they're willing to do all of this shows that I think we're on a turn. I think we're in a very different world that we were in a couple years ago. So, with that being said, D23 is over. The doors have shut. I'm going to go to bed. And tomorrow we're going to wake up and see what's next. And all I can say to all of you is I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you are excited for what's coming. For me personally, um, I'm very, very impressed and I'm very, very happy that Disney is taking the time to do these things. And I don't think this is the end. That's the best part. I am so over ecstatic that I don't think this is the end. I think this is just the beginning. We'll see later this week. I could be very wrong. They could completely screw all this up by saying with Tomorrowland, they could. I'm sorry, Dawn, I have to say it. People Mover. If they say the People Mover's not coming back, they can immediately kill that. If they say with this Figment one they're throwing Inside Out into it, they can kill that. Um, they can show that they're still having they're too afraid to dip into original stories. They can do that still. But the fact that they didn't say that tonight or last night, the fact that they were saying they were going to be original things, even with Villains Land being an original story, and that they were taking these characters we knew but defining them in new ways, I think that shows that something new is coming. A new Imagineering, a return to form in a sense, but also I think a evolution of what we had um, is coming. So, that being said, I'm gonna go to sleep. It is 11:20 at night for me. I know it's a lot earlier for the Disneyland fans. Um, I look forward to seeing what's next. If you like these kind of videos, I know this one was very long. I'm thinking about posting this to YouTube. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna do it anyways. I'm gonna keep this in the. I'm just gonna keep this in a video. We're just gonna keep rolling forward. I'm gonna post it to my channel and post it on Twitter. Um, but I really hope you guys enjoy what's next. I really hope. If you guys want to see more from me, just talking about announcements as they come out. I know Drew and there's a lot of other content creators like Offhand and or like Dolan and them that talk about things on camera. Again, I'm not the first person to do it, and I'm definitely not going to be the last. If you want to see more of this from me, or if you have ideas of things you want me to talk about, things you want me to predict, things you want me to just say for the fun of it, let me know. I'd be happy to. And yeah, I really appreciate you all for coming and listening to the video. If you made it to the end, my heart goes out to you. De la Terra a la Lune is the best ride ever. And with that, I'm going to sign off. So thank you all so much, and I hope you have a fantastic day.